So, Namaskar, I'm Anuradha. Greetings from the Gnostic Center. A year ago, as a tribute to Sri Aurobindo in his 150th year, the Gnostic Center started this series, All Life is Yoga. All Life is Yoga is a line from Sri Aurobindo, and we have endeavored in this 1 year to take up certain key themes and look at them from the consciousness perspective and explore them, that how while living our day-to-day life, being engaged in whatever we do, we can integrate and create a bridge between our inner life and the outer life. We have looked at business, we have looked at money, at world crises, at education and health. And today, this being the final webinar in this series, we are looking at a personal journey, but also seeing what its implications are for others who may be on the same path internally and may have been dealing with this issue. The theme grew out of a personal connect with the two panelists who have something very beautiful to share. Patrick, he is based in US. He's a professional sacred artist, a sculptor. And he's also a professor at 2 universities in US, teaching theosophy and religious studies at Marymount and George Washington University. And Tong, she's in Europe, in the Netherlands, coming from China initially. And she's a CEO and an entrepreneur and a founder, a business consultant, trainer. So, but both of them connect over something very deep and personal to them. And I found it very interesting that two previously people who didn't know each other came together through this theme. So I will start the webinar by asking both of them to share a little bit about what does homecoming mean to them. We have called this homecoming across spiritual paths. What does homecoming mean to them and what started them off? So whosoever wants to go first. Patrick, would you like to start? You can unmute yourself.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yes, so for me, the notion of homecoming has to do with both a spiritual search and a creative and academic one, because I have had many homes in terms of spiritual homes and many homes in terms of academic and creative homes. And so homecoming has to do with the idea of coming home to my true self, my true relationship and then identity. And for me, that has been very adventurous, and as an artist and a scholar. And in terms of spirituality, it has had to do with Roman Catholicism, where I was born into a Roman Catholic family, and then through that discovered mysticism. The spiritualities of Francis of Assisi and his consort Clare of Assisi have been the most important, but I've also discovered Cistercian spirituality and Ignatian spirituality since then. And Paulist spirituality was always important to me growing up too. So those might be foreign concepts to folks in India, but they were different flavors, you could say, of Roman Catholicism that formed me as a young person and as a young adult. And then I discovered through a Catholic monk the writings of Sri Aurobindo, and he spoke so highly of Sri Aurobindo that I felt like I needed to read about him myself. And so I felt sort of a draw to come home to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother after that, which later led to the idea of coming home to God more universally, just sort of widening the circle. And that there's no sort of one home, but that there is one home, but that has many manifestations. That became, I guess, an idea and an experience for me. I then, after that, discovered Inayat Khan, who brought Sufism to the West from India in 1910, and his order of Sufism also speaks of a sort of universal notion of homecoming. And in the United States, that particular order was then taken over by another Indian named Meher Baba. And so I discovered Meher Baba as well as part of my journey that I can talk about later. So Sufism, the integral yoga, Catholic, Catholicism were all part of my spiritual formation that sort of widened my idea of coming home to my true self. And what I guess what I'll end on is the keynote of that whole experience that continues and unfolds even today, is that I find myself at home more sort of in between the different religious homes. And scholars talk about this as a third space, a neutral space between religious homes where people can meet one another and learn about one another and be illumined by the path or tradition of some other home tradition. And for me, I'm finding myself more at home in between homes, if that makes sense. And the more I sort of deepen my relationship with the integral yoga and Sufism especially, I find that that's what they're calling us, that the mother, Sri Aurobindo, Meher Baba, my murshids or the teachers of Sufism are calling me to increasingly become more at home in between homes. And I think that's because religious traditions are in such flux right now. They're sort of dying in many ways, but also birthing something new. And that something new, I think, is coming to the fore between religions. So homecoming has to do with that kind of process for me of becoming more comfortable in between, in that third space. So I'll end there so that we don't talk too long.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
Tong, we would like to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Anuradha. Thank you, Patrick, for your beautiful narrative. And hello all for the audience here, where I see some old friend, Ritika, and welcome to see the new friends from India. I don't know what other, this new name, Kresen are is coming from. Majority is from India, right? I'm now based in Madeira, in Portugal, our second home. We just recently settled here, so coming home has so many different meanings. I would start resonating with what Patrick said. Coming home for me, coming home is for me, one dimension is really about coming to my own truth, having this true relationship with myself, and coming to my own authority, my own inner authority and inner sovereign. And another dimension is about this, your feeling coming home when you enter into a certain spiritual path. And in my case, I have been feeling at home in different paths, but yet this home can change. I started my journey in China when I was born. It was very much Marxism's ideology. There's no religion, there's no inner path, but yet I was experiencing distinct inner knowing, inner seeking. My parents gave me very liberal education that I could really feel and be myself, and I could get connected with that part of myself, that part of home. And then when I was 25, I immigrated to the Netherlands, and through my husband entered into the same Sufi tradition that Patrick was talking about, this Hazrat Niat Gang Sufi movement. And that message of the divine within us is so resonating with me, which I haven't heard any of this type of teaching in China, and the paths that open the heart to me to say, hey, this is this is the journey that we can walk. So I immediately felt at home, even coming to the Netherlands. And after that, I discovered that I think after 10 years, the Sufism nourished me and initiated me in the conscious spiritual seeking, and was very grateful for that first 10 years of nourishment and initiation that I felt I could not bring into my Sufi practices into the work. I could not transform my work, and also my nature. The human ego was difficult to transform, and that created a kind of inner crisis that outside world would not see, because everything seemed well in terms of marriage, work. But yet I felt an inner distress and prayed deeply to be guided. And then miraculously, I was encountering Mother Surabindo's symbol, teaching. Since then, I was settled. I felt second time coming home. I left my previous Sufi home and coming second time like home, and all my questions were answered, and my life made a different turn, and different decisions made, and the whole orientation of life has changed, both my work, my relation, my marriage. And I would say, and then 5 years ago, after I think another 10 years, I think my cycle is every 10 years, that I came back to my own heritage, spiritual heritage of Taoism, which tremendously opened, expanded me, and to see what really the multiple facets of spiritual evolution can be, and how different traditions can add to a different specific sophistication in supporting us in coming to our true home. So in that sense, I also feel in the end, all different spiritual homes, different spiritual traditions is facilitating us ourselves to finding our own path, our own true path to leading to our home. So this is how I see and experience this homecoming phrase.
Thank you, Tong. Both of you are talking, you are emphasizing this true home, and you're pointing here that coming to the true home. I would like you to speak a little bit about that, but also, Patrick mentioned about that the religions are dying. And at the same time, we also see there is a truth in that many people are turning to spirituality, not to religion. But we are also seeing a kind of a revival of religion, even some kind of fanaticism, and in some ways, at times it feels that the lines are sharper between, there is an emphasis on dividing and on holding on to one's religion and saying, this is better, or this is this, and you are not that. And you are talking of something completely different, almost, I would say, opposite. And that also raises a question for me that do we then just make a mishmash of everything? And I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate here, frankly, but also it is also a genuine question that is there no difference between various paths, and is every path the same? Or so there is this truth, there is this one aspect of emphasizing the division and differences. There is the other aspect of harmonizing everything. So I just want to know, what is it? It is, what is your experience, at least, not academically, but how has it contributed to you? How has it impacted you? And what is your then relationship emerging? Like Patrick spoke of being at home in between homes. And Tong is speaking of different paths you can unpack that a little more, both of you.
Do you want to go first, Tong?
Okay. For me, I noticed the what is going on in the world, you know, regarding what you are saying, Anuradha. At the same time, if I look at my own experience, all have been evolving so naturally. So whenever I had a distress or I have a question that my own past, my own tradition, spirit tradition at that time could not answer me, I would pray and I would ask for guidance. And I always felt that my prayer was heard. And then I would just continue with whatever I'm doing. And then the new path, a new teacher, new friend, new companion showed up. And so very naturally, it was inspiring to see, gosh, another person has totally opposite path than me, how they have evolved, how they have used their different parts of being. And it was equally relevant, equally effective, and equally inspiring. So I think that true encountering has helped, and to see that the different paths can be enriching and expansive, and shed light also on my own limitations, limited view of how I see even integral paths or Sufi paths. So I think that was one point I want to mention. And another point is to be able to truly enter into another path, that, you know, to explore into another path, it requires us also to be able to give up some attachments we have to our own path. Because I noticed in the beginning, I was so attached to integral yoga path that I was constantly using the mental models of integral yoga to examine Taoism. And I realized later that was insincere of me, because you can't experience one, you know, the gem of one tradition if you cannot enter into that as a newborn. I just freshly start work, not questioning, not using the mind, just feel experience first. And once I did that, and then how can I say that? And then I could really see the beauty and see the efficacy of that tradition, how it had nourished me. And then I can come back to integrate with what I have been practicing and learning from integral yoga paths and Sufi paths. So I saw this danger of this dogmatism of, you know, about a certain tradition and using that as one standard to judge others, rather than to truly be able to go in that. I noticed that to be able to surrender, we have to so much grounded in your own inner truth, to say, hey, our path is not, you know, we're not determined by one path or another path, we're determined by our own inner experiences, to say how my soul is going to experience this tradition, how the tradition, you know, calls me. Yeah, I would stop here for Patrick to elaborate more, but these 2 points showed up for me.
I resonate so much with that, Tong. That's beautifully said. I think it describes my experience as well. And that there's sort of been, for me, a sense that a flooding, well, let's see, I should back up. So one of the reasons that Anuradha and I spoke about this very theme, this topic, happened, I guess, about a year or so or two ago. My father had passed away in 2019. And through the grieving process, I felt called to return home to my Catholic faith and to practice the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius, which is a very specific kind of practice that lasts very many weeks. It actually lasted a whole year for me. And so I sort of grieved my father's passing by doing these spiritual exercises in the Catholic Church. And I was sort of doing it every day for an hour, and I would meet every week with a spiritual director, a person who was trained in this method. And I found myself, it's sort of, reading the Bible, reading the scriptures about Jesus and Mary, and imagining oneself physically with them, and maybe having conversations. And so it's a very beautiful kind of imaginative process. I found myself wanting to include the mother and Sri Aurobindo in my conversations with Jesus and Mary. I found myself also including Meher Baba and my Murshids as well. So it became this incredible journey of, I guess, just all of these friends coming together, all of these masters in my life who have shaped me. But in this context, I guess, of a Catholic prayer or a Catholic practice. But yet, for me, I was able to include all of these people within my being. And luckily, I had a spiritual director who was able to go with me. He was a Catholic, someone trained in this process, but he said, bring them in. Don't be afraid. Don't feel constrained. So luckily, I had someone like that. I think that's not always the case, but I was. It helped me grieve my father's passing, and to also, I guess, think of the passing of the mother and Sri Aurobindo and Meher Baba and some of my previous Murshids when they passed away. That grief was coming up, and I think during COVID, the grief that is so a part of all of our lives that COVID has brought, in terms of the deaths that physically we have maybe experienced, deaths in our families, people who maybe died of COVID, or it's death of ways of life that COVID has disrupted, and it's very much disrupted religious practice. And so I, at least in the United States, I see how people are hanging on to maybe a more traditional religious practice, mainly in Christianity, because that's the context here, but that's breaking apart. Like the Christian dominance of my country is giving way to something more inclusive of other traditions, as more people from other countries and other races, other ethnicities, other religions are coming here, and those traditions are growing larger. And I think, we see it so much in terms of, in the United States, we see this defensive reaction to this manifestation of something more global, something more inclusive, something more complex and interesting. And we're seeing this reaction against that, a tightening of boundaries, saying, no, we can only do this and do it this way. And that expresses itself in my country in terms of the white caste. We can say it's a caste system here, really, the white caste versus the black caste and the different colors in between. And the white sort of Christian element is afraid, I think, of being replaced, when actually it's more of an expansion, I think, that's going on. If we can sort of slow down, if we can open ourselves up and see that the world is opening to many different ways, and that doesn't mean that we're all the same. I think that's your question, Anuradha, that, are the religions all the same at the end of the day? I don't think they are. I think they're very different blends of divine forces that have, grew up in different contexts, and they offer something unique and beautiful, but different from other ones. But there's something happening between them. There's something happening in the walls that hold each one. There's something sort of dissolving in those walls, and it's allowing things to permeate and to mix, while at the same time, there's the identities are there's something essential to these identities that is surviving, yet at the same time, there's something unessential that's not surviving. And it's very difficult. I think it's a death process and a birth process at the same time that I'm experiencing in myself as well, in terms of my own sort of ability or opportunities I've had to mix, I guess, Catholicism, the integral yoga, and Sufism. And going forward, it's sort of it's a discovery, it's an adventure, like the mother says. This is an adventure. It's not been done before. And it includes religion, but it also includes non-religious approaches. And so it's very new, I think. And because of that, it's very uncomfortable, and the reactions against it are very extreme.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, whatever my understanding is of reading Sri Aurobindo and the mother, there is this, that is what I find interesting, that what both of you are pointing to, that there is this being sincere to the truth of your being, and then finding the methods can be many and can be from various traditions or non-traditions or your own, but it is the aim and the, you know, what your core is wanting, how it wants to express and manifest itself, that is most important. But in the process, like till now, both Tong and you have shared about, you know, how it has helped you grow as a person, how it has helped you integrate various things, come in touch with the deeper you. I would also like to know that what are the challenges, inner challenges you have faced in this journey? You know, what are the roadblocks or resistances in your own being that you have seen in this process of expansion or widening, or being true to yourself?
Okay, well, I start. Okay. Yeah, I think I started with confusion. I think the first transition of changing, of transferring from one home, spiritual tradition home, to another one, in my journey of coming home here, was first confusion. I thought, gosh, how come I'm a Sufi? You know, how come I'm not happy here, and how come my questions were not answered, and by my teacher, who I respect so much. How come my life's issue I could not, you know, resolve my spiritual practice? So that was first, and the second was the seeking and praying. Once I was led to Sri Aurobindo Mother's teaching, then I got still this conflict. I'm not true. No, I'm not true to myself. My teacher says you cannot walk on spiritual path with two legs, one leg on two boats. I said, did I do something wrong? And I was not true to my Sufi tradition. I'm now, you know, and I remember that my husband and I, we were going to the Delhi Nizamuddin Aulia's Hazrat Niatgan's Dargah yearly, have yearly retreat. And those moments that we, after the retreat in the Dargah of Hazrat Niatgan, we would go to Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Delhi. And I was taking up all the books and reading, like unstoppable, you know, and then coming to the retreat and feeling so guilty. So what I'm doing, what happened, you know? And until I prayed to Inat Khan in that retreat to say, what is going on? Is it true? Am I doing something wrong? My teacher said I should not do this. I should choose one. And miraculously, he responded to me. He said, continue your journey, my child. It's the same journey. After that, encountering with him, I fully be free, liberated. Nobody can stop me to pursue integral yoga. And so I distanced myself more and more and really enter into. So that was one. I think the second challenge is from this integral yoga path and integrating my Taoist tradition is that the integral yoga path starts from above. We go down, you know, and Sri Aurobindo was talking about we establish our higher light and higher mind and psychic being, and then from there we work on the lower, you know, parts of our being. And I developed this negativity towards everything that lower, everything hadn't been finished. this intolerance and rejection, without loving and first owning it, without first owning and loving, accepting it, you know. And this Taoist path, that what I encountered with, is so including everything lower, even starting from everything lower, which I was totally objecting in the beginning. But yet I saw my Taoistic friends and mystic friends, we become sisters, that start from totally opposite way, is equally relevant and valid. And that was the big opening for me to say, okay, we can start the body. Some tradition can start the body. Some souls can start from the journey can start the body, and from there to reach the soul. And it's, you know, so this Taoism is really complemented me, this outgoing way with the descent, you know. And I think that was the biggest challenge, to let go of my own conception, my own attachment actually to that integral yoga is the only way and the only standard. And then and let go of that and be truly in the Taoistic practice. I think those two one that, and still sometimes I still feel guilty. I'm still praying to Mother Schraa-Liu in the early phase, was asking, am I on my path? What is going on with me? I felt that they were just witnessing, they were allowing and giving all the freedom of my soul as children. We experiment, you know, I felt like that was also the beauty of allow ourselves to be fully in, but sincerely, not to just to go for vital excitement or interest, or sincerely being in seeking the truth in that practice, and seeking our inner truth resonating, and yet respecting and honoring the truth, how divine forces has manifested in that tradition.
Thank you, Tong. Patrick?
Yeah, I have similar stories of feeling guilty, of feeling like, am I doing the wrong thing at the beginning? Especially when I was a Catholic and discovering Sri Aurobindo and Mayor Baba. Let's see, in dreams actually were very helpful for me. I had many powerful dreams when I first initiated, I guess, a contact with these other spiritual figures from traditions that were not Catholic, and the dreams helped me to integrate and to give myself permission, really, to explore these other paths and to integrate them, to widen my circle. The first dream that I had, I remember, was I was at the University of Notre Dame, where I went to school, and I see my friend Gretchen. She is a part of this. She was there with me. But I was at the University of Notre Dame, a Catholic school. I was also discerning priesthood at the time, to be a Catholic priest. And I was also an artist and discerning how to be an artist. And I was reading Thich Nhat Hanh at that time, a Zen Buddhist, as many will know. And I was confused as to why I was a Catholic, because his Zen Buddhism was so attractive to me and so beautiful. And I felt like it was no different than the mysticism I was learning, and in a certain way, to the mysticism I was learning in the Catholic tradition. And I had a dream of the Buddha. He came to me in this dream where he was giving blessings to devotees who were in a long line for sort of darshan for him. And I got in that line of darshan, and I saw that people were becoming light as they got in front of the Buddha. And I felt like, oh, I want to get in front of, I want to become light too. And so it's finally my turn. And the Buddha didn't give me the meaning of life. He didn't do any special blessing. He just started talking about the weather. And this was very annoying to me. I thought, I want the meaning of life. I want the blessing. I want to become light. He pulled out of a drawer a rosary that I recognized right away. It was a Catholic rosary that belonged to my grandmother. And she used to pray this rosary when I was a child. We used to go to mass together, and she would pray this rosary. And he gave this to me as a gift. And he said nothing else and continued talking about the weather. And I felt incredibly like I was being told to just sort of to bloom where I'm planted, I guess would be, like to appreciate the Catholic faith that I was born into. And I could bring Buddhism with me if it would be okay. Buddha would bless me that way. So it was an affirmation from the Buddha of Catholicism that began my journey to Sufism and integral yoga, that allowed me to give myself permission as an artist to be inspired by all these different traditions and to create artwork that would be expressive of all of these traditions, and to practice my own sadhana, my own yoga, my own practice, inspired by all of these traditions at the same time. So I had dreams of Sri Aurobindo that did the same thing, where he basically blessed my journey, and Meher Baba also came and did the same thing. Amazingly, it happened over a few years. And I'll end with one story that happened in Pondicherry. In 2012, the Sufi community that I belong to, we went to on pilgrimage to Maharashtra state, to the ashram of Meher Baba. And it was a celebration of 50-year jubilee of a East-West gathering that he had given. I see someone nodding, maybe you were there. But anyway, so in 2012, we were all there celebrating. And then it was an amazing experience. People from all over the world celebrating the East-West gathering that Meher Baba had done in 1962, which was like a way for him to honor the union of the East and West hemispheres, and to honor all the world's religions, to honor a new age, a new Sat Yuga, you could say, and a closing of the Kali Yuga. So we had this, music and poetry and performances. My wife and I from there flew to Madras, Chennai, and we went to Pondicherry for the next leg of our trip. And we went immediately to the Samadhi of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And I had never been to Pondicherry or the Sri Aurobindo ashram, though at this point in my life, I had been studying it, and I'd been doing my PhD studies as well, and writing a dissertation on the integral yoga. So I was very excited to see the ashram and to go to the Samadhi, the tomb shrine. And I immediately felt like I loved this Samadhi better than Meher Baba's Samadhi. Like that was the feeling I had. And I immediately prayed to Meher Baba and I said, Baba, I'm so sorry, but I like this Samadhi better than yours. And immediately, as I felt guilty, like, oh no, I shouldn't feel that way. I should have more of I don't know. I just felt guilty. And so I started to think other thoughts, and immediately a thought entered my mind that was not my thought. It was Meher Baba's voice. And he said, I am here. And that's all it was. I am here. And it felt like I came home to Mother Sri Aurobindo, and Meher Baba was blessing it. And I was coming home to Meher Baba at the same time. And that had the reverse happened, that if I had gone from the Samadhi of Mother and Sri Aurobindo and went to Meher Baba's Samadhi, I could imagine Aurobindo and Mother saying the same thing to me, that I am here. And so I cried and I was laughing at the same time. And I kind of had to put my hands over my mouth so I wouldn't make too much noise. But it was a very meaningful experience that has stayed with me.
Thanks so much for sharing that. It's very, very touching and meaningful. Yeah, as we are a small group, I would like to
Radha,
open.
can I add a few more points?
Sure. Tong, go
Inspired
ahead.
by what Patrick was saying.
Yeah, please.
I also, exactly what in my journey I noticed that even those challenges is when we coming across different spiritual paths on our journey, that even the challenges and difficulties are meant to train us to trust our own agency and to claim our own agency, to say it's not about the path, it's not about the guru, it's about you, own your power and access that power and access that discernment to walk your path. And that was, I felt also what I was so moved as Sri Aurobindo. I have very best Sri Aurobindo because I have a very close relationship with him. And I have so much devotion for him. And in the process of practicing those practices, I was always feeling, am I true to him? But yet, I always felt that freedom that I have, and he always put highest than, my own freedom is more important than even the transformation of this being. So that was really, made me feel like that all different paths in the end, even his presence, even his, his work is wanting us to be truly owning that spiritual power and that agency to create our own path. And yeah, so this is what I want to mention about your wonderful question of Anuradha about these challenges and difficulties.
Yeah, so true. When I was listening to both of you, that is what was, for me, it has been a kind of a single path. But from total agnosticism to Gnosticism, that was a shift. And but I noticed the same things, that when one discovers a path, there can be a tendency to be kind of fanatical about it and rigid, and actually doing a disservice to the divine and to your guru. Because I'm sure, and that is what you are saying and what I have also experienced, there's this tremendous freedom. And Sri Aurobindo says again and again, find your inner guru. Ultimately, it's not just, don't believe something just because I'm saying it. Question it, live it, experience the truth of it. And whether you start from top or bottom, the descent or ascent, yeah, there is a way given, but it is not that has to be the same for everybody. And that is what, as you read anecdotes, conversations, more than the philosophy, when at least I find when I read personal conversations and guidance from Sri Aurobindo and Mother to devotees, you find such a variety. Because when we read philosophy, there is a tendency to be rigid and say, oh, Sri Aurobindo has said it, this one has said that, this is how it is. But that's all here. But when you read conversations and how they are guiding, and to one person they are saying something, and to the other they are saying totally opposite of it. So that again points to that, what is my calling, what is my need, and to be true to that, and then whatever works. But the challenge is not to get lost in the different paths, but to be true to that, and then everything unrolls so beautifully and harmonizes. That is what is coming across to me, listening to both of you. It would be nice that as we are a small group, like I was saying, that if there are others in the group who want to share or ask something, that they go ahead. Would that be okay? And even Tong and Patrick, if you want to ask each other something, you're most welcome to.
Yes, please.
So it is open to all of you.
Yeah, I would like to share.
Yes, Nidhi, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. When Patrick was talking about Meher Baba, because I deeply follow him, I deeply love him, and I found myself with him. My journey started, as you know, with Gnostic Center. Questioning, yes, it happened. It started before that, but I started seeking answers with Sri Aurobindo and Mother, you being one of the facilitators. But still, there was so much that I could not see the answers for. There was many things that were left unanswered. I reached to Meher Baba Samadhi in the year 2006, and from then a new chapter started in my life. And both, like Patrick and Tong, both have talked about different parts and everything. It was too much of confusion earlier for me, because not being an easy seeker and not being an easy one to say yes to anything around me, the tests were going on from both the sides. If Baba was testing me, I was equally testing him. That whether I am with the right guru, whether I am with the right divine power or not, or will I be left alone again, or will I be left unanswered again? And it's been 15 years. It's been quite a long journey. my marriage took place there. Both the kids are from there, and all, I'll say, all so-called problems which Tong also discussed about, that if difficulties come, if problems come, they are meant to make us learn something. There were times initially when I used to be so broken that I took help from Meher Baba lovers only, who were in direct contact with him through spirits. And I used to seek answers from that sources as well. That why are you doing this with me? Why? I came to you to live a happy life. Why are you troubling me so much? And every time for me, homecoming was understanding that the home is within me. It's not even, the epicenter is not even Meher Baba's Samadhi or Sri Aurobindo's ashram or a Gurudwara or a mandir, any place. That home is within me, and for past 15 years or so many years, every quest has leaded me there only. And now I am slowly finding that peace. I am gradually seeing a change within my own self, which may or may not be visible around me, but I can feel it. I am living it now, though it is a very stressful journey. It's not easy, it's very confusing, it's with so many ups and downs. But yes, for me, homecoming now is going, connecting within, seeking within, rather than going to places, rather than going without, seeking answers out. So for me, this means homecoming.
Thank you, Nidhi. Thanks for the sharing. Yeah, Patrick, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying beautiful, that it resonates. And I think I like, well, I guess I like the idea that the theme that's coming through is this notion of the heart being, and the individual sort of, the inner guru is the most important one, no matter what path or what guru we might on the outside have. I think every guru says, like Meher Baba said, I am not this body. So that's because the guru is within us, and we are that. Just trying to get more conscious of it. But anyway, I was mainly just appreciative. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you, Patrick.
Anybody else?
I had a question.
Yeah, Nishi.
Just listening to both of you, Patrick, Tong, it was, I think, a very reflective exercise for me about my spiritual home. And at this point of time, I feel pretty homeless in that way. And how bad is it, or how important it is to have a home? And yeah, just that.
Nidhi, Nishi, may I have a question to clarify? Once when you say you feel homeless, you mean you feel homeless in the sense of your inner orientation homeless, or you feel like in your spiritual journey now you don't have a connection, association with certain spiritual tradition?
Yes, the second one.
Second one, yeah. First, I would want to just feel what I feel, Nishi. I think it's not bad at all. You know, when we are not in association with other spiritual traditions on feeling homeless, there's opportunity to discover what that homelessness is. What is that void wants to tell us and wants to teach us? And to sit with that feeling, I don't think it's bad at all. It's another way of blessing. Maybe it's a time for us to find our home self, not attached, not associated, in connection with the spiritual tradition.
I agree with that. If you don't mind me, I think it's so important to have experiences both of being in a home and then being in between them, or being homeless. And both of them have their lessons and their opportunities and blessings. and challenges both. I mean, I come from a very Catholic, I mean, the Catholic Church is a very home, very firm walls, very, very clear roof, and very clear boundaries. And I know what that is like. It can be very comforting and helpful. It's like a womb that can be a protective container to birth something new. And I needed that, I think, as a younger person, especially when I was an artist trying to find my way. And I needed clear boundaries and walls that defined my identity. And I needed that. Then there were times later in life when I sort of imbibed the blessings of that and was ready to be outside of any kind of clear boundary and to see, well, what is inside of me that could grow when there's no boundaries outside of myself, and I can just sit with that. Like I think Tong is saying, sit with that and not be guilty or afraid, or to be guilty or to be afraid, and to look at that and just witness it, and to get outside of those feelings and sort of just witness the guilt, witness the fear, witness the discomfort, and see what sort of inside of those very difficult negative feelings might blossom. Because inside of those oppositions is something beautiful always. I think that's been my experience.
I also
Thank
feel, yeah, thank you, Patrick. I also feel, Nishi, that, and I don't know, I feel like in China, in India, we're all both coming from collective society. That group and family, and we all know belong to a group is more important. And then once our inner being calling us to come step out of that, to spending time on our own, feels like, oh, something's not okay. But actually, sometimes in my experience, when dissociating myself from a group helps me truly establish my own needs and knowing my own individuality. And it's quite opposite than the culture was wanting you. And sometimes I had experience that I need to be fully grown up before I have to first dissociate myself with all the influencing forces around me, negative or positive. So in that sense, homeless can be even positive. It's an important step to grow our own power.
Thanks.
Can I say something?
Yes, please, Jayashree, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank both Tong and Patrick for this extremely insightful and beautiful narration of your journey. Actually, when I saw the topic homecoming, I was intrigued because I was wondering what is this going to talk about? But I'm so happy that you put it in perspective in terms of your personal narrative and your journey in faith. Thank you for that. Coming to what Nishi said, I was just thinking about it. I think it's a situation of grace that you are in. Because when we are truly in that in-between space, it's an opportunity to aspire. It's really an opportunity to open ourselves to the mother, to the vast forces, to the divine force that she embodies, and to really aspire and surrender completely to her. And she will find the way for you. That inner guidance that comes through with the mother is homecoming. So not to feel lost or despair, but to see it as an opportunity to aspire. Because I was in that position once when I first came to the US. I suddenly had lost all my bearings and I did feel very homeless. And I continued aspiring to the mother. So thank you for asking that question. Thank you.
There are a few people joining via YouTube also, and one of them, Shilpi, she's responding to you, Nishi, I think. She says, is it also a phase of the life to being homeless? Is it also a kind of a phase of life? That is what she's puts there. Anybody else who would like to ask or share, comment?
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
You know, this phase of life, this made me think that it is a phase. We all go through that phase when we are seeking. And the seeking spirit is what marks as faith. Unless we seek, we'll never get the answers. So this phase, it is a phase, and it comes repeatedly. It's not as though it comes once and you find and you're on the path. But as just now the stories of homecoming, we were told that these are phases that come in our evolutionary growth. We grow to an extent, then we seek again, then we grow to the next step. So it is a phase, it's a welcome phase. That's what I feel. I don't know. Somebody else might have another perspective.
You know, it just reminds me, listening to this conversation, this morning when I woke up, there was this strong feeling. For me, since I came to Sri Aurobindo and Mother, there has been no other. So I feel that is my path, and that is very clear to me. But within the path also, I mean, just listening to this conversation, the sentence that came to me this morning was, it's so boring to live just for oneself. And I felt as if I was in a prison, as if I was just living for myself. And I didn't want that. And it was a strong feeling. I got up with this feeling. And listening to your conversations, it suddenly struck me, even if you are on a path, and even if you, so to say, have a home and you are, but yeah, these are phases where the moment you are not being sincere to your own aspiration, in the terminology that we are using today, we are homeless. So it is not a question of, like what Tong and Patrick shared, of shifting gears, so to say, of, coming from between Sufism, integral, Taoism, Christianity, and feeling that confusion. But even within, when you are following a path, so to say, even there are all these emotions, there are all these confusions and rigidity. And I think it is, again, the moment one is insincere, and which are many moments, but that experience is there.
Yeah, two things just made me reflect on is also based on previous question, Anuradha and Patrick, you are sharing on this, this world, this fanaticism, when fanaticism of religion comes in, people cling onto it and division. And I felt like it was because of Earth in such a rapid transition and so much upheavals that people want to hold on something to be safe. But that's exactly the moment to make it relevant for us to really search and be in our own inner home, because that is the only place where through where we can navigate into this complexity and upheavals of the outside world. Because that is the inner truth, inner guidance, inner home can guide us. I feel that I want to add. And also the point that Patrick was talking about it, once our inner home is experienced, and we can experience this inner home in different traditions and enriched by different traditions. That home is so out everywhere. So there's no division between this inner home of this tradition, being home with this tradition, or outer home. It's really wherever we are home, because this home is divine, and divine presence is with us everywhere. So that I was so grateful. I felt that without the, I consider myself a mainly integral yoga practitioner before, after I entered into the past. But I noticed I would, if I would die for not to miss the experience of the Sufi way that had shaped me, and not missing this Taoist tradition, that how that practice has enriched me and entered into my body, the bodily experience of this spiritual oneness and bodily experience of this spiritual seeking. Because Taoist practice so much into also the body, and made me discover how body is such a refined and sacred instrument of wisdom, of truth. It's not just another, a thing. And that brings so new perspective and enrichment, even deepening of my integral yoga practice, and of my experience of what Sri Aurobindo Mother was writing. Totally, it has new different dimensions and depths. So that I was so grateful about how divine was really manifesting all this beautiful truths, facets of divine, which is infinite through all these infinite traditions. And our soul is such an evolving, we are such an evolving being that all parts of our being needs to be nourished with different, different traditions and different practices. They're so refined. Yeah, this is what I want to say, just inspired by what you were saying, Anuradha, just before, and Patrick.
Yeah, if I can say something too, I don't know how much time we have, but Devashish Banerjee, I don't know if some of the folks know him. He and I have become friends over the years, and he speaks very beautifully about these concepts that the integral yoga really is the super mind, which is that's the way in which Sri Aurobindo understood the new energy that's being manifest on the earth. And this super mind is something that allows for the integration of everything, and the personal practice of anything to be personally meaningful, and to be that which is appropriate for me or for you, and that it can change over a lifetime as well, that the practice of the integral yoga can look very different in one period of one's life compared to another. And just the regular kind of yogas we might think of, you might be a bhakti might be more important in one life, one part of your life, and then later in life, jnana or karma yoga or Taoism or whatever we might discover. And that's really important, I think, right now, because of the way that the supermind is really dissolving all these boundaries, not just religious boundaries, but political and national boundaries, and psychological ones within us. And it seems to me that the coming home is very difficult now. It's more of a challenge than it ever has been. And it includes the body, like you're talking about, Tong, that this is no longer sort of an ascendant spirituality that would sort of leave the body behind and join our consciousness with spirit. But how do we awaken? How do the cells of the body, like the mother experienced, how do we deal with the cells waking up, doing a yoga of their own, the yoga of the cells? I mean, I love that, because as an artist, someone who works with matter and materials and shaping them into something that can communicate divine messages and force and consciousness, that this is a new time of descendant spirituality, that Supermind's descending, and there's something possible now in our bodies to awaken to a new home, that we don't need to sort of leave our earth to seek heaven, that heaven's coming here, I guess, in my Christian language, that the body is becoming a new home to find the divine and walk it on the earth, no matter where we are.
So beautifully put, Patrick. I think it sums it up all. So I think it's a good note to conclude on. Nothing more to say, really. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much. And may we all keep coming home to ourselves through whatever means.
Yeah.
Good night. Namaskar.
Thank you, Anuradha. Namaskar.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you,
Anuradha.
Tong.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick.
Mhm.
Everyone. Wonderful to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.